Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Clawson Planning Commission for Tuesday, September 25th. I'll open the meeting at 7:30. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Audia.
Here.
Ms. Fenton. Mr. Jacobson. Mr. Casera.
Here.
Mr. McHale.
Here.
Ms. Prowse.
Here.
Ms. Scripture.
Here.
Mr. Shepard.
Here.
Mr. Watson.
Agenda item number 4 is approval of the regular minute meetings from August 28th, 2018.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting from August 28th, 2018.
Support.
I have a motion, I have support. One change or one correction I can see on it. If you look under the first listing of who was present, it says that Mr. Jim Elvis was here, and Jim wasn't in attendance at that meeting.
You mean where it says also present?
Yes, the also present
Got it.
people. Yeah, I'm quite sure Jim wasn't here. Everything else reads fine to me. Okay. I have a motion, I have support. Roll call, please.
Mr. Casera.
Yes.
Mr. McHale.
Although I was absent, I will say yes.
Ms. Prowse.
Yes.
Ms. Scripture.
Yes.
Mr. Shepard.
Yes.
And Mr. Audia.
Yes.
Okay, agenda item number 5 is consideration of a site plan approval for 30 to 32 East 14 Mile Road. It's the proposed Weiss Distillery and tenant space in the city center district. Would our city planner, Mr. Ortega, like to speak to this first?
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
We're here tonight to consider the site plan approval for a new use at the location of 30 and 32 East 14 Mile Road. The site is located on the south side of East 14 Mile and east of South Main Street. The property is basically composed of two individual, the site is composed of two individual lots. The first being 30 East 14 Mile. That's a 20-foot by 100-foot size lot with a two-story existing structure that is proposed to be remained, and it occupies the entirety of the site. The second lot is directly to the east of that at 32 East 14 Mile Road, and that's a 30-foot by 100-foot piece of property. Currently, there is a structure, a one-story structure that is 30 feet wide by 50 feet in depth. So as the proposal from the applicant is to have the 30 East 14 Mile Road two-story structure to remain. That would be refurbished and be utilized for their proposed project. The first floor would have about 490 square feet of retail in the front and on the first floor, and the rear will be occupied for barrel storage. The second floor of the existing building would be utilized for office. And then at 32 East 14 Mile, that existing one-story structure would be demolished, and they would construct a brand-new two-story structure. It's proposed to be 30 feet wide and 100 feet in depth. The first floor would be occupied by a retail space, a tasting room, and a distillery. The second floor would be comprised of about 1,500 square feet of office, and it would occupy on the second floor, the front portion, if you will, the front portion that's fronting on 14 Mile Road. The rear portion on the second floor would be open to the first floor. That's necessary for the distillation that's going to be occupying in the rear. So as proposed, these uses are permitted generally after approval by the building official. Based on review of the planner, we recommend these types of uses be approved contingent upon site plan approval, and then technically it's approved by the building official. So that includes the distillery, the retail component even requires this approval. So it's not a permitted by right, it's not a special use, it's just something that we go over with a little bit more of a fine-tooth comb to ensure the compatibility. But these uses, we do believe, are appropriate for the downtown. They will add a sense of vitality and activity to the area, so therefore we would definitely recommend them. The only one thing we do note is that in the site plan itself, the floor area measurements don't necessarily align up with ones located on sheet T1. The area labels on that sheet of A1 don't correspond to each other. So that's a minor discrepancy that just needs to be revised on a revised plan. With regards to the setbacks in this area for the existing and proposed structure, this is our CC district, and the height, the front and the side yard setbacks all meet the requirements. We note that technically right now in the new CC district standards, there's a 10-foot rear yard setback requirement. The applicant has already been to the ZBA, and they have received a variance for that setback. So the new structure is going to be constructed, once again, 30 feet wide by 100 feet in depth. So it's going to, but it has a variance for that 100 feet depth, and it's going to occupy the entirety of the site. As I mentioned, the floor height, the building height is in compliance. We have some additional standards such as interior floor height, and I just want to note that this is our second review of the property, of the project. I'm sorry. The applicant, we've been working with the applicant. They've gone through our first phase of review, and they've worked with us to modify the proposal to meet majority of the other standards. And so one of those characteristics that's part of that was that technically there's a 15-foot requirement, first floor requirement in the CC district. And originally they came in with about 12 foot, but they adjusted their plans accordingly. Building and pedestrian access, they are proposing to have main primary access off of 14 Mile. They're also going to be placing a garage door in the existing structure I'm not sure if it'll be utilized for access per se. It'll be more about just aesthetics. And actually, it won't be really for access. To the rear of the site, fronting on the rear alley that's adjacent to the property, they are proposing two garage roll-up doors that would mainly be utilized for loading in of equipment and supplies for their production. We also note that actually they are proposing a pedestrian access door on the east elevation. Those are on your elevation sheets on sheets A1 and A3. And this door, because the proposed new structure is going to be occupying the entire site, technically it's going to be exiting onto the adjacent property. Now, currently, there is about a 4-foot, 5-foot wide pedestrian path that is currently utilized for an access door on that existing building to the east of their property. So we're just suggesting that they acquire a pedestrian easement, just so that way they can protect their rights and make sure that they can come to an agreement with that adjacent property owner and be able to fully utilize that door. Should, for some reason, the adjacent property owner go through a redevelopment of their own and decide to occupy that entire property for a new structure. When it comes to off-street parking requirements, when we take a look at the composition of the uses for this project, the way we calculate it, it comes out to about 41 required spaces. Per section 34-1056C and 34-1073, the Planning Commission can come to an agreement to an applicant to have other methods of off-street parking rather than have them on the property to have other means. The site is directly adjacent to the alley south of the building, and then directly south of that is a city public parking lot. So there's extensive number of parking spaces in that location. In addition, there are parking spaces along East 14 Mile Road now and throughout our downtown. And so we would recommend that that the Planning Commission find that the location of adjacent public parking is sufficient to service the site, because this is going to add to the vitality of the downtown by having people park in other areas and walk to this destination. When it comes to landscaping and screening, this is in our downtown, but they have proposed some slight greenery on the site. This is located on sheet T2 and A2, so they have some various shrubs in the front of the structure. So given the fact this is entirely hard surface structure, we believe that's appropriate, and actually it complements the building. When it comes to the building, the architecture, they are proposing with the new structure it would be mainly composed to utilize glass, anodized aluminum, and limestone for the new building. And their similar materials would be utilized on the existing structure for that improvement of that facade. They would be painting the remaining elevations on the west and south, so it would be a definite improvement. So we believe that the overall design is both an attractive design look that will blend new materials and a modern style effectively with the substantial feel of the existing facade. The new structure is a little bit more of a modern style, but we do believe the way it's blended in and would be appropriate and attractive to the downtown. When it comes to trash removal, the applicant, the plan does not indicate how the trash will be removed, whether they would be utilizing some type of service pickup or potentially utilizing, there is a there is a garbage dumpster on the south side of the public parking lot. So we would just ask of the applicant to clarify how they're going to be proposing to deal with trash. Signage, both the rendering on your screen and on the first page and on the elevations, they're proposing signage that does meet our ordinance requirements in terms of 24 square foot per individual user and other signage. So it meets the standards. And similarly with exterior lighting, sheet A2 has the details, the cut sheets for the proposed lighting in terms of sconces and other architectural lighting that would emphasize the architecture of the building. So therefore, it does meet our standards. So with regards to this site plan, we would recommend that the Planning Commission grant site plan approval contingent upon the following. I'm going to jump, since they have received our variance for the rear yard, they no longer need that contingency. So mainly two. One, provide documentation of a pedestrian access easement for the east elevation entrance exit door from the adjacent property owner. And two, submittal of a revised site plan that would that includes consistent measurements and labels of floor areas for uses of all sheets. Clarification on trash removal for the building, and any necessary revisions that may occur due to the city engineer review. So with that, I will answer any questions or allow the applicant to make a brief presentation.
Any questions for Mario?
I have a question.
Yes.
In looking at this overall plan where we've got lot 42, lot 41, now are we changing addresses on it?
The addresses that I was using are what's Oakland County Property Gateway identifies them for the actual properties. So that's for the property addresses. If, for example, the applicant wants the second floor to have a additional address, they can apply to the city, and the city would assign them an address. I believe
Okay. No, I was
one
just,
of them is 34. And
yeah, one says, 30 and a half, and then the other
Yeah.
goes, but that's where the staircase is.
Yeah,
That's not a problem there. But then the other one goes 32 to 34.
right.
Now, is it just going to be 32, or?
I'm not sure. That's something that we can work out with the applicant. Typically, what happens is in a new structure, prior to occupation, they would apply to the building department for an address, and whether they'd like to keep the 34 or change it to another, they could. Obviously, it would be in keeping with the address assignments that we have, and given the fact that the adjacent property is 36 to 42, their choices are kind of limited.
Well, that was just one thing that stuck out on me. I deal with numbers all the time,
Ah, okay.
so. Yeah, just curious, because then I know the presentation was 30 to 32, and then I see 34,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. That was intended to reference the properties, not
Okay,
necessarily the
but then we had the two
businesses.
entrance doors too, so I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
one for the tasting and the
One
other.
for the retail.
We don't want Jim to get lost.
Neither do I.
You won't lose me. Yeah, the
Oh, I
other
thought you
was
meant-
for the display vault, and the other was for the tenant lease space, so,
Right.
okay. Just
The
curious.
applicant might be able to answer that, clarify that question for you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mario?
So, was there, we had talked at some point in time as far as a mural on the west wall? Is it's for this area, not necessarily specifically for the building? Is that something that was being considered at all, or?
Yeah,
The
there might be.
question, Glenn, I'm sorry.
We had talked about improving that walkability in that alleyway as far as putting like a mural of some type. I think that was discussed in some of the DDA presentations, if I recall.
That's definitely something that, if they wanted to, could be part of this application. I get the feeling that they might want to, and I won't, forgive me for speaking for them, but they might want to foster this project first and then maybe work in tandem with the DDA. And maybe Joan could speak with that, to
Sure.
a comprehensive project for that alley, making it a nice pedestrian element. A lot of times, some people might think that it's just a quick shortcut, but these places can create a sense of place in a community, a uniqueness, by enhancing simple public areas like this to have a small little respite place, or even something that could be a signature element with a identification mural. So it's something that could be addressed in several ways, but it's something to consider.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. And signage is all within
Yes.
scale?
Yep, signage is all in accordance to our standards.
Okay. So then signage includes Weiss Building at the top?
Yes,
or-
that's actually not a commercial attribute. It's a carving into the limestone.
Okay.
So similarly to other buildings in the past, it's not something that is
More like a cornerstone.
exactly. Yes.
Okay. Not considered advertising?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just like Colombo, another question. Okay, the building for, we'll say at 32, does that share walls, or is that an individual building by itself? Individual? So you've got no problem as far as the,
Let him, he's got-
Yeah. Oh, you might want to use the mic. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
one of them architectural questions,
Hi, my name is Steve Moore with Arc Revival, and I'm here to represent the Weiss Project. Thank you for having us back. I'll jump right into some of the questions that you guys are already discussing, and then I can circle back and I can talk about the contingencies that we've already discussed. So the first one I'd like to talk about is Glenn's question. What we would like to do with that alley, and we would absolutely like to do this as a secondary project, because by the time we get through this construction project, you know what I mean, a lot of things can change in the downtown. We don't know where everything's going to fall. But we have a vision, a shared vision, I think, for that alleyway that could be, a very public open space, where I could see a mural like you're pointing out, I could see restaurant, seating in there with little chairs, you know what I mean, or park benches. There's a lot of things, but I do believe that project deserves its own, own time in the sun, like where we would develop it. We'd love to work with, the Downtown Development Authority, on coming up with something really awesome, for that whole alley. So, and we're working with a client who's really open to suggestions and ideas, for how we use that. So I could absolutely see a great mural in the future of
Okay.
that. So.
And as far as, thinking as far as places I've seen those types of spaces, like an awning, or not an awning, but canvas that stretches across, or lighting that goes in between.
I could see
But-
market lighting going all the way
Yeah,
across that whole
exactly.
entire thing, you know,
Yeah.
with little shady spots.
And
So,
that would be require the cooperation of the building next door?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah, I think that how I would look at that, and I mean, this is just my suggestion as a designer, is I would look at that as a joint venture between our building, the building next door, and the Downtown Development Authority. You know, I would look at that as like, that would be the team, you know, that would really, you know, contribute to that project.
Okay. All right, and so as far as the amenities, they're considered the bench and the platters, is that?
Correct, yeah, so we're doing a bench, and we're doing planters, and we're doing a bike rack as well,
Okay.
so we're giving you guys 3.
And is the bike rack, is a similar style that we're using currently?
We actually think we've proposed something a little bit different that kind of has a little bit of shape to it.
Okay.
But we're happy to, if that's our suggestion, you know, but if the city of Clawson feels that they want us to have you know, the continuity, we'd be happy to, you know, this is the one that we're doing is the one that's on T2, which is the horseshoe that goes up and down.
Yeah.
Which we think is just really cool because it's like an architectural element, you know, put into the brick pavers. So that answers that one. And then to Jim, your question, we have walked our structural engineer through the project. What we've done is the steps that we've taken to do investigation is we asked Dennis to do some demo work inside of the coffee shop. So he has had a team come in and remove all of the surfaces off of the building so that we could then have a structural engineer walk through the project and give us an analysis of what his thoughts were about, you know, tearing down this coffee shop. And he said, no problem. They're 2 individual buildings. They will obviously take some shoring and some care, you know, with new construction because you're building in, you know, in between 2 existing structures, but that is an independent structure. So we already have a plan put together on how to remove it with little trouble.
And that would be fully sealed when you redo the other ones so that there's no gaps in there, et
That is
cetera.
correct. Yep, that is correct. Mm-hmm.
I know, that's architectural stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but what I'd like to do, if I could take a moment, I would like to walk you guys through the floor plan before we get into some of these other ones, because I would really like the board to understand the steps that we've taken and what we've done, you know, on this project, which I think is really, you know, kind of paving the way, you know, towards, you know, like where your downtown development is going with zoning standards. So if I could take a couple minutes, I'd like to walk you guys through it. Is that okay?
Sure.
Cool.
Sure.
And I'm going to go over here if that's all right.
Microphone.
Boy, he knows how to do this.
He
He got
knows.
this down.
Can you guys
Last week, he knows
can you
how
guys
to-
hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the way that we've approached this project, which I absolutely love, and this was with a lot of work with Joan through this over the last year and a half, you know, was you guys did a study a couple years ago where you had people walk around and give input, you know, for each individual, you know, corner of this downtown development, you know, and what they would like to see and what they currently saw. And one of the comments that kept coming back was, you know, that your citizens and your residents do not want Clawson to become another Royal Oak, you know, where when you drive down the street, that's all you see is bars. All you do is, you know, look in and see bars and, you know, restaurants. So the way that we approach this project, which I just love, you know, is what we've done is we've taken what you would consider the bar, which is the tasting room, and we've actually pushed it back almost 9 feet into the structure. So what we've created here, which is I think really awesome, is we've created a new tenant space inside of this existing building that was a 24G building forever. So this is not leased yet. We'll see who goes here. But what we've also done with this, and I just want to pretend this is an Apple screen and move it all over with my finger. Can you scoot up? There you go. What we've done, you know, is we've actually introduced an overhead door onto this alley that we were just talking about, in the anticipation that this alley is going to become like a really cool, you know, public vista, really something really awesome. And then if we could scoot back down to the front. So what we've introduced is basically 3 tenant spaces that sit in front of the distillation. We've introduced this one, which the owner will lease out to an occupant, undecided yet. We have introduced this tenant space right here. This tenant space is actually owned by Weiss Weiss Distillery. So what will happen is all of the booze that gets distilled back here will ultimately be able to be sold in the showroom in the front. So what that gives us is it gives us a storefront presence right off of 14 Mile Road instead of a bar presence. And then we have what we're calling the display vault. And what that room is that's something that, okay, so what we're creating in this tasting room is a speakeasy. Okay, so it's something that you have to maybe know a password or the answer to a joke or something, you know what I mean, to get past it. So to get into the tasting room. So what's going to happen is you'll walk through the front door and you're going to see a big bank vault. So this door right here is going to be a big bank vault door that you have to pass through to get into the actual tasting room. And then in the center of this, what we're going to do is we're going to do a display. And what we're going to ask for is whether it's shops from Clawson or shops from surrounding areas, we're going to ask them to contribute part to pieces to say, you know, like Shinola could put a watch in there, you know, and it could be available at Shinola. You know, Warp 9 could put in some Star Trek figures, you know what I mean? Like, and they could, you know, say available at Warp 9, you know, so that would act as like a little display for anything that we wanted to do at the time. You know, if I don't know, the Detroit Pistons were doing really awesome and they were winning the playoffs. Do they do playoff? What do the Pistons? It's playoffs?
Pistons
or
won't make the playoffs.
It's been a while, but yes, they do.
Okay, got it. So, you know, like that might become a Pistons display for a couple of months, you know what I mean, through the whole thing. So that will kind of be like a revolving element that what we're trying to do is we're trying to create that buffer between the downtown, give a retail setting, and then we get to the actual, you know, tasting room. So then if we can zoom out to the whole plan. And then what we've done here, okay, so pretty much all of this existing building stays the same. We'll be housing barrels in here. This is another really awesome element that we've introduced. So on the back of the building, what we have is, it almost looks the same as the front with all of the glass and the inset, but the difference is that they're going to be overhead doors that will actually have glass panels in them. So if you can picture this is a 2-story space that's right off of the alley in the parking area that you'll be able to see all the distillation equipment on. You know, so all through the night, the lights will be on, you know, we'll have them, you know, shining on all this beautiful distillation equipment that is 2 stories tall, you know, in some cases. You know, so really what's happening is it's not going to look like a dumb back of the alley, you know, just kind of building. You're going to look into like this beautiful open, you know, 2-story structure, you know, housing all the distillation. You know, so I really see that as being like a big key, you know, kind of like element working off of, you know, the parking lot and everything else back there. I think it's going to be awesome. This is the door that we talked about as far as the access goes to the neighbors, because what happens is this is technically our property line, so we're built directly to the property line. This is 5 feet right here, so that's what that dimension is. We actually have with us signed documents from the neighbor. We picked them up today that says that they're okay with this, that they've approved this as a easement, you know, for us to use for pedestrian access. If they ever decide to build this out right here and infill this little 5-foot area, it's really no problem, because then what would happen is their fire door would just move to the back wall. You know, so we're not relying on this little alley whatsoever for our egress. You know, we're just egressing out right through the side, which actually dumps out kind of like into their backyard. But we do have an agreement to make that happen. And then, so I think that covers, you know, just the concept of the plan. So
Let's describe the second floor. So,
yes.
And I see that the catwalk, I'm assuming, is going to go around so you can look at the distillery area.
Yep.
What else is upstairs? Like, what else is available to, is there seating up there?
No.
No. So
No,
just
yeah, it can't be public because the nature of distillation, you know, we wouldn't want public to be, you know what I mean, to be back there. So really, well, the distillation is a private. Now, you know, Dennis is pretty cool and he's got lots of great ideas. So I could imagine he would one day say, hey, I want to host an event where we're going to walk people through the distillation process, you know. But at that point, I don't think that it would be a very controlled setting, you know what I mean? But it wouldn't be open to the public on a day-to-day basis.
Got it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, joining on his question, but the whole thing's 2 stories, not
Correct.
just one part. So you got part of it's 2-story with the whole distillery, but then the other part,
Is going to be offices up above. So the front of the building is first floor,
Right.
tasting room and retail, and then second floor
and that's a
offices.
a dumb question.
Mm-hmm.
I should know this because I'm sitting up here. Do we allow downtown apartment living? So that could actually be residential too if they so chose. Just a quick question. Sorry. And could you do that so I can move in? Next question is,
I got dibs. I've already.
and I was just going to say, I can tell that this is, you hate this project. You
Oh, I
know, they can't, they just probably can't pay you enough to get done with this, right? You just look miserable.
You know, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's been a terrible
It's been
process.
awful.
That is.
So then, is there gonna, the whiskey, is it only in-house, or can you take out, like, you can buy grogs at some of the breweries?
Yeah,
So you can
that'll
buy
be in the
bottles and that kind of
in the
stuff?
tenant space, right? Yeah, in the tenant
Correct. So
space.
Okay, so there'll be like
This door right
retail,
here. Yep.
some restaurant retail.
This door right.
Takeout.
Yep. This storefront right here is the retail spot
Okay.
for the Weiss brand.
And just to toss this out there, looking at what, when you go to get T-shirts, please get female T-shirts. Female T-shirts, not all boy cut, straight, big, giant, girl T-shirts. Thank you. Okay,
His
I
wife
look
will be
way
all
better
over
in a
that.
girl's t-shirt than a guy's. That's why she wants it.
yes, it's for him.
So you have an elevator that services,
Both sides.
Okay.
Yeah. So the goal here, what we've done, if you go back to the plans, is we've introduced like a core area for the elevator. So what will happen is that elevator will be able to bring both buildings into handicap or ADA compliance. Yeah, because you will be able to ride the elevator up and then get to this building, like once you're on the second floor. Now, how we're going to do that yet,
Yeah.
I don't have worked out, because we have a 2.5-foot discrepancy between the floors. You know what I mean? Because you guys have a 15-foot,
Yeah.
minimum floor. So what happens is this floor on this side is higher than this side.
Yeah.
However, I'm not done with it. We just haven't developed it. But we will have access to both sides. You know what I mean, with the elevator.
okay, so as far as the second floor on the, what building is that? 30, right, to the west?
Yes.
Okay, so you have two distinct spaces on the second floor,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Okay, and so as far as being able to access through the elevator, you would have to have two distinct entranceways for that elevator?
Correct. So what's really probably going to happen is, you see this area right here?
Yeah.
This is going to get blown out.
Yeah.
And we'll have some kind of ramp that just drops you down the 2.5 feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
and that would access both the
Correct.
north.
The east and the west.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I'm saying as far as, but you have a north portion of Building 30 and a south portion of it,
It's
right?
actually one open
Oh,
space.
is it? Okay, I'm looking at, I see a wall here, that's the
Yep,
reason
yep.
why,
It's
okay.
actually one open space. You
Okay.
know? So yeah, I think the graphic just didn't print correctly.
Okay,
But that is
alright.
actually one open space.
I see, okay. And is there public access to the roof on either location?
Yes, on both locations.
To the roof?
Yes.
Is there any?
Roof hatch.
Okay, is there any intent to use the roof at any point in time?
There is not currently.
Okay. Okay.
Devil's advocate question. Okay, I like the idea of lighting, displaying the distillery and everything like that. Now, what about the effect of the lighting as far as the brightness? Is that going to reflect anywhere on the apartments that are there, or?
No, it will not. The lighting that would be on during the night, that would be for security and also just to show off the awesome distillation equipment, would just be shot down lights that are shining just down on the equipment, just so that you could see it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, but it wouldn't be bright enough that it would light up the whole storefront.
Well, I know people would think about that. That's why I asked the question. so
Understand?
Just for clarity, for the public.
Yeah.
If we might go back to previously, we were talking about the bike rack and the bench. Is there locations spotted for those yet? Are those
Yes.
going in the alleyway?
If we go to the site plan. Right here. So the bench we're proposing to center right in this alley right here. And the bike rack, if I'm not mistaken, is, Daniel, where did we put the bike rack?
One in the alley and one out on the street
One here?
to the right.
Right here.
Two
Oh, yeah,
bi-
okay, there's,
Two bike racks?
oh, here we go. Is it, oh, yeah, here's our bike rack right here.
All right.
Yeah, so we're proposing that we do a bike rack right here in the alley. And then we're doing another one on the street. Oh, yeah, right here, right in front of the building.
Okay, my slight concern is that the alley is city property, and that has to be, and it's, because it's in the DDA, I'd imagine that our DPW does snow and ice removal and things from it. Is that going to cause them a problem putting a park bench in their way?
That's where it sort of sits most of the time. There is an old one that's been sat there for a couple of summers, like right in the center. But we're happy to relocate if it's in the way, you know what I mean, of future
Okay.
planning. So these are kind of where we're putting them right now. But if you guys have other ideas, we'd love to hear
I'm
them.
just questioning putting private amenities on city property. And the use of that property down the line, perhaps it could be sold to business. I'm not sure how that would work out.
Could I actually throw an idea out there?
Sure.
What we could do is, and I think this would be the best idea, like for everybody, would be if it was possible for us to commit to these amenities, but not the location until we decide on how we're going to develop the alley, because
Okay.
I'd hate to put something in only to have to remove it. And maybe we can put an earmark on it of 12 months or however, what do you guys think is appropriate, to say, we will include these into the alley design when the alley gets designed.
Easier than you putting them in and us telling you you have to move them then down the line.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, that would make sense.
Okay, so.
Or you could bolt the bench down in the cement and then put it in storage for the winter.
Yeah, like the patios come in during the winter.
Well, I never liked where that bench is located right now. I mean, it's like a barrier, as small as it may be, it's still a psychological barrier that you shouldn't go past it into
Right.
the alleyway.
Right. Understand. Yep.
Right.
And I think that's why we hold it, because this whole palette right here has potential to be such an amazing space if we approach it cautiously and correctly with all the team members on board. We can really make that into a cool space. So, and I agree with you. I mean, we don't like it either. We just don't know where else to put it right now, and so we kind of figure out what we're doing, with this other space. So, but we're committing to it. So, if we wanted to approach it with that contractual commitment, we'd be happy to do it that way.
They used to have safety pillars in there too on that alley.
I remember. Yeah. So you couldn't drive a car down there, right? Wasn't that what it was for?
Bollards
Yeah.
over there.
Yep.
I got my motorcycle down there a couple of
So
times, I tell you.
So I understand the concept, right? If you're walking down the street, right, so you have 30 East Main Street, right, which is the existing building. You have a facade there, right, and that is going to be part of their business, right? Okay.
No, this one is somebody else's
Okay.
business.
But they have a sign for their business in front of that?
No.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, so.
No, on our renderings, we might
Yeah.
have the sign switched around. We're just
Okay.
showing space. You know what I
Okay,
mean? Like
I see.
we're showing the space definition so that you guys are seeing that we're in compliance as far as how much space we goes.
Okay.
And so that you guys can see a graphic of how much space the signage takes up.
Okay,
But those
that-
will all move around.
That
Yeah.
kind of, okay, because I was asking about the signage and the square footage, and like, okay, well, how is it that they have two?
Yeah, and that's one of those things when it comes to site plan review.
Yeah.
Technically, it's more about an education for the applicant, making sure that the proposed signage is to scale
Okay.
and meets our ordinance. They still have to apply for a sign permit.
Okay. And then the first entrance on 32 East Main Street is for a tenant, right?
Yes, and that tenant will be Weiss Distillery.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last entrance on the east portion of 32 East Main Street is going to be the front to enter the actual building.
Correct.
All right, so the way I saw it is that you have Sabbath Coffee, right? Is that the front for the building? Is that the intent, or I'm confused as far as you have coffee, but you're not going to serve coffee, or what's
Oh,
the?
don't pretend it says Poppy's Popsicles.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's yeah.
And the only reason why I asked,
Acme Company,
mom,
yeah,
mommy's
just
apple turnovers, whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I get it, because I've gone to other places where they have, it's a drugstore, but
Yeah.
in the back is the speakeasy.
Yeah, right.
Right. So you're like, why is it at midnight with the drugstore closed, with the soda fountain, there are people going back and forth?
Right.
Okay. So
Right.
that's the intent.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. We're showing. We're showing right now. Like I said, any of these signs can be changed. Like I said, this could be. This could be. This will even. This will really be the Weiss Distillery.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
could be. Like Weiss. Retail.
Okay.
And this could be like Poppy's Popsicles if my daughter wants to put a popsicle
No, I was
stand in
saying
here,
the
so,
actual
yeah.
entrance to their location for the tasting room could be something else. And
It
that
could
was
be,
like,
it could be, and we haven't gotten quite that, yeah. I
that's
get
why I
it.
was confused. I'm like, okay,
Right.
where's the coffee come into this?
Yeah,
right?
no,
So, okay.
yeah, that's not,
All right, all right,
those will all shift around. Once
got
we
you.
go, once we solidify, we get through site plan approval, when we go to actually produce the signs,
Yeah.
we'll show what they are.
Okay, we've had such a problem with signs recently. I just
Understand.
want to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay, looks like you're in pretty good shape here. I spent this afternoon watching your meeting at the ZBA, how you got the variance on the 0-foot setback on that. That was approved. So that takes care of the first item on the list. The second item was documentation of a pedestrian access easement for the east elevation entrance exit door from the adjacent property owner. Did I understand that you have that?
I have that, and I'm going to turn it into Mario right now.
Okay, so that's two of them off the list. Now we're on to item number 3, is submittal of a revised site plan that includes consistent measurements and labels of floor areas on all sheets. Can you update that for us?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, and item B is clarification on the trash removal for the building. I heard what you said at the ZBA. Trash is going to be a lot of compost, basically.
Yes, and actually, I've asked Dennis to put together a comprehensive trash disposal plan, and he'd like to present it to you.
I'm Dennis Weiss. You guys know that by now?
Good evening.
Good evening. So the waste is pretty easy. So for the tasting room, we're not serving food there or anything. We're just doing our spirits and different cocktails and stuff like that. So the waste from that will be, like liquid waste and stuff that can safely go down the drain. Recyclables, cans, cardboard, plastic, glass, we plan to recycle all that kind of stuff. For production, all of our organic waste is actually given to farmers for free. They feed it to their pigs and the cattle and all that stuff. Food, everything we use is food safe, so everything can go down this drain that we have back there, like water. And then our undrinkable alcohol is actually reused as a cleaning product, so to clean the stills, the floor, and stuff like that. And we can submit this as a breakdown, and that's really it.
Yeah, our main concern was that there's a dumpster in that parking
Yeah,
lot
and
there.
we would
didn't want to
utilize
see
that south dumpster as well.
overfilled. Yeah.
The daily trash, for the offices and the things like that would go to the daily dumpster.
Right.
All of the items that would be caused by the distillation process is what Dennis just covered, which would be the recyclables and the giving it to the products to the farmers.
So how much is it as far as what you give to farms and so forth?
It's about 600 gallons of grain that we give them every time we do a distillation, which we plan to do like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Okay.
So it's quite a bit, but
Yeah.
pigs like to eat, so it works out.
All right. I was going to say maybe give them to the
You're
chickens in town.
you're
Sure.
Sorry.
Your plan
I'm going to mention that.
Yeah, let's stay off the chicken there. Your plan is to distill several different things, whiskeys and
Yep.
vodkas? And
Vodka, gin, absinthe,
Absinthe.
and whiskeys. Yep.
Are you distilling currently?
We are. We actually got approved by the federal government and the state, so we're good to go on that end. And we've distilled a few sample stuff. Vodka, whiskey.
And from your
Beverages.
ZBA meeting, I understand you won't be breaking ground till probably spring?
That's what it looks like, depending on how the weather is and our finalization of all the construction documents.
So will you be on scale, pardon the comparison, but on scale with, say, like Valentine's and Ferndale? Is that the,
So we're kind of trying to focus more on the local community first and then go into distribution.
Okay.
But it's very possible. So our distillery, like we've used a lot of technology. I'm personally from the technology industry. So a lot of the stills we use, they're not just, just the copper stills. They have, automatic timers on it, and you can run stuff just sitting there, and it's really cool and a lot safer than a lot of the gas guys because we're using all electric. So, yeah.
Did I understand you were going to put the Clawson name on the bottles?
Yes, for sure.
You
Name-
can't- you
you
can't
have
use-
to legally.
You can't use the logo, but you're allowed to use the name.
We could, if you'd like.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody want to make a motion to approve or disapprove?
Contingent on this stuff.
yeah. Boy, I'm out of practice. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll follow your lead.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan for 30 and 32 East 14 Mile Road, including the following: consistent measurements and labels of floor areas for use on all sheets, clarification on trash removal for the building, and any necessary revisions that address issues identified in the city engineer's review letter.
I'll support that.
One addition, and
sure.
that the amenity location to be determined at a later point in time.
Correct, we'll stay flexible on that. And one thing I'd like to add to it, because it was brought up at the ZBA, we should require off hours for loading and unloading, so we don't jam up that parking lot out back, which you seem to be amicable with that. You know, I don't know how much trucks you're bringing in, but are you carrying whiskey barrels in and out of here?
No, once they're sitting there, it's like a one-time delivery,
Okay.
so it's no problem doing it off hours.
Material will be coming in, but you're not talking big semis, so, okay.
No, it's all local farmers and
Yeah,
stuff
so
like that.
just, we just want to make a note of that, if you try to do that during off hours, it doesn't jam up the parking lot during, 12 o'clock lunch hour and so.
I'll support those additions, too.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have support for all the additions. Anything else that wants to change? Seeing none, I'll take roll call, please.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Mr. Audia?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes. It's going to be a nice spring.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Did we win?
You won. Welcome.
You gotta say,
Yeah, exactly.
You won.
you gotta say, welcome to Clawson.
The Clawson.
I always tell everyone, wait till they say welcome to Clawson before you say thank you.
Now it's official.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you very much, for your support on this project. We have worked very hard on this project with Dennis and everybody at the city for the last year and a half to try to deliver to the city of Clawson the best product that we possibly could to cover as many gaps in what we saw, that block that we could cover, and at the same time, giving the owner a plan that really, works with what he's trying to do. So we're really proud of this building, and we're excited to see it come up.
I believe you're doing an excellent job in town. You should have done your resume as to how many places in town you've done work on.
A lot,
are the best.
but we want to do them all. We just want to do the whole city. So
I'm
we
very,
just-
very pleased with
We
your
would
work.
love to have
Oh,
you do
thank
the
you.
whole city. Your buildings are the best. They
Oh,
really are.
thank you. We really appreciate the compliments. We love working here.
Okay. Are you guys going to do bourbon also?
Yes,
Okay.
takes a couple of years, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it takes a bit of
true.
time.
Not bourbon. You can't be bourbon.
Bourbon has to be done in a specific area.
Oh, and one other element that we're adding to this, because it's like an old kind of like fashion distillery, is we're going to have a most wanted board, and I'm going to be the most wanted. I take the prize for like $5 million win.
Famous chicken, if that's
So, but nobody turned me in. You don't know where I'm at.
Well,
Thank
then,
you so much.
double welcome to Clawson, then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very excited about that.
We'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is the bond discussion.
Yes, given the fact that Susie has been doing the work on this and that she is expert with the information in your packets, she asked that this be postponed
I
until.
make a motion to table until the next
Support.
meeting.
Oh, postpone.
Postpone.
Not table, postpone.
Sorry, I make a motion to
Postpone.
postpone
Yeah, you
the
corrected.
bond discussion till the next meeting that I won't be here for.
I'll second that.
No, you can't say that.
I won't be, I'm going to be out of town.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, postpone. Do we have a date for the postponement? I'm sorry.
The next meeting.
Okay.
We can wait till you get back.
Is that a motion
I
to
can send in my thoughts.
postpone?
And I second it.
And a second, and do we have to take a vote on that?
Yep.
Okay, let's take a vote on it.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Mr. Audia?
Yes.
And Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Agenda item number 7, public discussion. Items not on the agenda. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close public discussion, and we will move on to other business.
Other business, just in terms of reports from the planning department and building department. If you recall from your previous meeting, 1177 Maple Road, the Mata Building, they were intending to submit a site plan so that we could review it and present it to you this evening. However, their design team had a medical emergency. It sounded pretty serious, and they were not able to get that turned around in time. They have just submitted today a revised site plan that's going to.
Which building? Which building is it?
It's for the
Mata
Mata Automotive on 1177 Maple Road.
Yeah, I was going to question that myself, because I believe when we were in here, we asked them to come back with new drawings,
Yes.
and we gave them a temporary CFO, which I think was like 30 days.
It was
which,
for 30
which would be
days.
like today.
Right.
So does that automatically, are they moved in, do you know?
I do not know. I'm not sure of your past practices, but I mean, if you felt comfortable granting them a 15-day extension to your next or extension to your next meeting, or
Shouldn't
however,
we? 'Cause
however you'd like
otherwise
to.
they don't have one.
Yeah, or else technically
let's,
they would.
Let's extend
Yeah.
it for them another 30 days.
And that way we can begin a process of keeping track of each temporary CFO and making sure
Right.
that it does not expire without an actual.
Yeah, it's
an
pretty
actual
easy to
approval.
provide a running spreadsheet of that.
Right, yeah.
Just add, take off. I make a motion that we extend the
Extend Mata's
CO for,
temporary.
30 days?
Meeting.
I'll support that.
was it
30
30 or
days?
15?
Let's do
30 or-
30 days.
30?
Right.
Go
Yeah,
30.
30, 30, I'll give them time
30
to
days.
Carry over just in case something happens.
Yep, 30 days.
The motion, support, roll call, please.
Ms. Scripture,
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd,
Yes.
Mr. Watson,
Yes.
Mr. Audia,
Yes.
Mr. Kucera,
Yes.
Mr. McHale,
Yes.
Ms. Prowse.
Yes.
And then just one final item, as I noted and as Greg opted to watch. I'm very impressed. I watched the entire ZBA meeting
Yeah.
with regards to their variance application.
1 hour and 18 minutes of it.
Yeah, it was.
Darn, I was out of town.
It is available for you or for any viewers that want to.
I'll watch it.
To occupy their time. Anyway, the variance was because there is currently a 10-foot rear yard setback. During the course of the application and during the review, I was asking around to the DPW director, to Joan from the DDA, and and Susie and everyone, why was this standard, considered and included in the new ordinance? And no one really had a remembrance as to exactly why. Generally speaking, I would think the possibility would be to allow for some type of loading area or parking space on private property, so therefore not being in the public right-of-way. It's the only reason I could think of. And that does happen in other communities, but usually it's a little bit more substantial than just a 10-foot setback. So it's something that we're just going to keep our eye on, and it might, in the course of future amendments to the zoning ordinance, that might be something we need, this body might need to address in terms of, unless someone can recall why that's.
No, I mean, the only thing
included.
I have a concern as far as the 10-foot setback, especially on, when it comes to shared walls and things like that, that those spaces tend to collect,
Right.
how should I say, vagrants, not just of critter type, but of also plant species.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Weeds and.
Yeah, and then invasive species that, gee, how did that tree get there? It's
Right.
like, well, nobody could get back there to take care of it, that type of thing. So,
Well,
anyway.
there's that. So it's just something to keep in mind. And if anyone happens to recall during the course of discussion when you did adopt that, why that was in there, any additional knowledge would be helpful.
You may not be able to answer, but Nora Technology, the little drone company that was moving into the old Toto building,
Yes.
we gave them a go-ahead and everything else. I don't see any activity there. Do you know of anything going
I
on?
do know that they completed the sale of the property, so they are another property owners.
Okay.
I believe I would assume right now that they're under getting construction drawings ready and other attributes of there. I thought they were cleaning out the interior, not doing any building permits. I don't know if any building permits were issued, but
Yeah, okay.
I do know they definitely are moving forward.
And everybody asks about Osaka Steakhouse. We're not
grand-
holding them up in the least, right?
As far
Their
as I
sign
know.
says they're,
Yeah, their
Hiring,
sign.
yeah, they've been hiring for quite a
no,
while.
no, they said they had they're opening.
They're open?
They're open.
Really?
Yeah, they're open.
Oh,
Oh,
I feel bad going to Kyoto
about
all
it.
the
I
time.
haven't seen
yeah, it's a quiet,
Well,
it's
I
a
had to
quiet
drive by to
opening.
see the big
Soon
sign.
sign, but I've never seen opening, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
swing
either.
past.
No, I just drove by the other day and I went, ah.
And then actually, speaking of openings, Zioli's is going to be having a grand opening ribbon cutting ceremony.
I've been there twice
Thursday.
already.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
I
it's
love
one
the
of those.
children's menu. You got to go just for that.
And it's Thursday at 3:30.
Yes. Thursday at 3:30.
It's what's on it, so Alex.
Look at me, Melissa, it's important. Okay.
And they have a
gonna go
beer and
check it
wine
out.
license.
Do I get to order off of it as a non?
You can. I told them to carry it onto the adult menu. And as far
Okay.
as the
The theme.
theme, yeah, you'll get it
Alright.
if you ask
Good
for
to
it,
know.
so.
And
If you have kids, they would.
that's it, unless you have any other questions.
Zeoli's apparently purchased their beer and wine license through the DDA, and I'm gonna have to look at more details on that. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I know a DDA liquor license is non-transferable. It only stays with the building, and I think it's cheaper than buying one through the state. But does that still would have had to been approved by council, wouldn't it, to bring another liquor establishment into the city?
I would think so, and to the best of my knowledge,
I never
most-
saw it on their agenda.
most,
It's just beer and wine, right?
Yeah.
most liquor licenses have to be approved by the legislative body of the community, which would be the council. However, when it comes to transactions of the liquor licenses, there's such a legacy with the various licenses that are around, and there are. I know there's a redevelopment license that's available, and sometimes you can swap licenses with other communities. So there are various tools available. But to the best of my knowledge, at some point it would come across the council. But
So speaking
Not
of that, it just occurred to me. So is there not legislation as far as selling liquor that they have to be within a half mile of each other?
in terms of selling or
Yes.
producing, that I'm not aware of. I hadn't thought
Okay.
of that. I didn't think that. I mean, in terms of selling,
Licenses, I'm sorry, I didn't.
I thought there was a restriction on distance between establishments that sold hard alcohol, like liquor, right? So, and there was a reason why,
all over this.
excuse me, Michael's is over here and the other
Yeah, I was
place.
gonna say.
So,
You're
That-
saying they should be a half mile apart?
something like that. Yeah, it's a certain
What about
distance.
downtown? I mean,
You're
you've
not
got-
saying
you've
bars,
got
you're saying
No,
liquor
I'm
stores.
saying actual stores that sell
sell
bottled.
carry-
right? That may be
carry-
packaged
Carry
liquor.
outs.
That might be a packaged liquor situation, and I imagine something was written in when they brought back distilleries that maybe
Yeah,
on-site selling of their own product might be considered different. But once again, I'm speculating at this point. I don't
And I
know,
thought there
so.
was discussion about that in the state legislature as far as, but that was months ago. And I just, when you were talking about trading liquor license, like, wait a second. They're going to actually sell bottles, right? That's the intent.
Yeah.
So whether or not that, but that's theirs to consider.
I have a
So-
question.
Yes.
Didn't you guys have a parking meeting? Did you come to any conclusions or?
As far as I know, they did not come to any kind of conclusion.
No, I thought you were there and you and Greg, and didn't you guys have a,
Right.
so they would be you. If
Well,
you were
they
there,
meaning I was
you
there
would have
too.
known. So, yeah, was there any?
There was definitely no
Progress?
conclusions and no real progress, unfortunately. There are alternatives that I've thought of in terms of both applications for property owners that feel aggrieved by by other property owners parking on their property, and then there's also the idea of private property owners having the ability to have agreements with other property owners to meet their obligations. But, you know,
Well, I'm asking, A, because parking continues going, I mean, we're just, this place going in right here, if they're super popular, you know, I know they talked about people parking at different spots and walking and the walkability, but obviously, once again, we're looking at creating a destination that may draw people in, you know, pretty
That is
cool
true.
ones. So parking, once again, is probably going to get a little tighter, and I guess if there's conversations going on about what's going on about parking, and as we look at these things as a commission, it might be nice to be kept in the loop about
Absolutely.
the general direction those are going in, or, you know, things that are being brought up.
Because we've got
And
the two
honest-
public
and-
lots right there.
when
I
it
mean,
comes
it
to,
just-
I'm sorry, when it comes to parking, you know, sometimes they want, I think that's the rain.
Is that rain or?
Yeah, it's
I think so.
Just in time to
I
head
think
out.
generally speaking, that when it comes to a site-specific issue, honestly, I think that's a little bit very narrow in terms of its scope. It's intended to relieve a situation of other people, a specific situation, whereas the Planning Commission has the ability to look at parking for the city as a whole. For
That's why I'm
example, we did do a map not too long ago that showed all the available parking. And there are various ways that you can analyze the parking needs and demands. That's definitely something any planning firm, well, most planning firms can do for you. Doing a comprehensive planning study, looking at the.
It just seems like it's happening, parking's happening kind of as a separate thing, and to me, it seems to, like, it really should be integrated
Well, yeah.
into our individual and our big picture look. I'm concerned that every time we approve something awesome like this, we're not looking at the big picture and potentially creating problems moving out. And, I mean, not that have any, this is great, but it seems like there's two different things going on here, and they really should be more integrated, especially for us.
Yeah, I believe the question was asked at the ZBA meeting about seating, and they have somewhere between 30 and 40 some people could actually sit in this place.
Yes.
So we have to look at, yeah.
So,
But
what's the
I mean, I would
possibility of
agree that
30 people coming in and filling up that parking lot.
I would agree
so
that
if
the
there's
planning
meetings,
commission could be
and
the
if there's
one.
parking, if there's meetings going on about that, it might be nice to include, or at least to make the opportunity available to other, not a quorum, I mean, I understand we're trying, but other people on the planning commission that maybe have the time or the availability that can help keep that knowledge and the, awareness and share it and communicate it. And
I think also too, the idea of having the planning, because the planning commission would be the one to do the parking plan. So you guys could do that.
3-tier parking deck.
Right, Jim, you're not going to the meeting.
No, that's okay, because Royal Oak's doing 5, so we won't be like that.
Yeah, well, Ferndale allows 6 chickens too, so.
Uh-oh.
I got nothing else.
How many eggs
Yeah, I
per
gotta-
chicken?
Yeah, if anybody's interested, it's October 10th at 7 o'clock. There's going to be the big chicken meeting here with council and
I'm
residents.
gonna miss it and I'm bummed.
It's gonna-
When was the
You can
Ollie's
watch
grand
it on the
opening again?
replay.
Thursday.
No, but they can't say anything.
3:30.
3:30?
I'm
3:30.
supporting it.
Oh, this Thursday of this week?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if they're doing a ribbon cutting, but
Not sure. Various events,
We
in a
can
couple
open
I'll be
hours.
able to make that one.
I just want to say, as far as there's a lot of new home constructions that I'm seeing, is there any observation that any of these could be snout houses?
Not to my knowledge.
Snout.
Oh, the garage in front.
Yeah.
garage front.
I'm not sure the site plans for those houses don't pass my desk.
Yeah.
But it's maybe something I should look into in terms of at least observing what the current trend is.
What's
That's a
wrong
good
with
point.
that?
Snout houses?
You got one right there on Elmwood.
I know,
You
exactly.
know,
Yeah, but wait a minute, that's the guy's design. If that's the kind of house he is looking for and designs, and he's
I think that's a
comfortable
bigger
with,
conversation.
Painting my
All
house
right,
in
it's all
polka
right.
dots.
We'll bring it up next time. So anyway,
let's
so
knock
like I said,
down
I
all
saw
colonials.
there was a number of them going in, which is a great sign.
Right.
It certainly beats what I recall back when I first started on this commission, that there was too many foreclosed homes and not enough development. So we're in a good situation. So anyway, okay.
okay.
all I
If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion. to
Well,
adjourn.
just say goodnight to our viewing audience. Thanks for tuning in.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn
And I'll
this
support
planning
that.
commission meeting for September 25th, 2018.
And if we just.
And I support that.
If we all just say aye.
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 Say
The
aye.
motion to adjourn is taken. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.